Hello and welcome to another video. As we are approaching mid-December, I would like to provide you with an update on my cold frame project. Welcome to a cold frame update. We have a cold frame here that's been doing quite well for the last 2 months or so. Initially, when I built it, I had mentioned that I wanted to plant in some kale and mustard greens, and this cold frame now predominantly comprises of parsley. That's just the way things go. So I do have some kale plants in here. Most of the kale is transplanted from other parts of the garden where they were growing earlier in the season when everything was green and warm, and now these kale plants are in the cold frame, and the transplant shock was really not too much of a factor when I transplanted them. I just made sure that I picked off all of the older growth leaves, only leaving the young ones. They haven't really grown that much since, but it's been colder and everything like that. So, but they haven't died, they haven't or been looking sickly or anything like that. They seem to be quite happy. As for the parsley, these were transplants that I put in the cold frame from a different section of the garden. I wasn't even planning to grow them over the winter, but here we are. And I just picked off the older leaves, and they seem to be quite happy. I gave them some water, and they've produced some more leaves these last few months, and seem to be doing quite well. Back in this small corner right here, these are a couple of the kale seedlings. I had probably about a 90% casualty rate with kale seedlings. For one thing, the construction of the cold frame took a little longer than originally anticipated, so these kale plants got a little leggy and definitely stunted their growth. When I transplanted them out, we had some warm fall days when I accidentally left the lid on too long in the morning, and it just that's when the cold frame turns into a cooking oven. When you have small seedlings like that, they do not fare very well in that condition at all, I have come to find. So if I were to do this again, I would definitely plant the kale seedlings earlier, like in maybe July or August or something like that, not in mid-October or early November. But on the other hand, I was successful in finding the space to fill with all this parsley, a couple of kale plants, and so the space in this cold frame is being pretty well utilized, in my opinion, and I am looking forward to fresh parsley in February. As for the watering goes, I only water the plants when it's well above freezing and during the day, and I make sure that I water them in that situation only when the soil is dry and the plants look like they need water. I'll water them, and when I water them in the morning. I don't water them any later on in the day because I don't want the water droplets to collect on the leaves too late into the evening, and then it freezes and then temperatures go below freezing. I don't want that risk to turn into a factor that determines the productivity or livelihood of this crop. And during the winter, they shouldn't need too much water anyway, because many of these plants are in much more of a dormant state with the lack of available sunlight, so they don't photosynthesize quite as much, and with the nutrients being locked up somewhat in the soil due to the colder temperatures, these plants are not going to be as greatly affected by drought during this time of the year. Okay, so in this second cold frame, which is mostly unplanted, I have a couple of cilantro plants in the back. The one on the far left looks alive and happy. The other two next to it, maybe not quite so much, but I only planted them a couple of weeks ago, and we had already had some frosts and cold weather, and so I wasn't holding up too much hope that they would survive. But there's one looking healthy and happy, so that's good. Now down here with these larger plants, these are two rutabaga plants that I transplanted into this cold frame actually just the other day. I wanted to ensure, hopefully, Like I said in a previous video, this is not a guarantee at all, but I want to try and give myself the best opportunity I can to collect the seeds from these rutabaga plants, so hopefully I can continue to grow them in the future. I can link to another video where I talk about the rutabagas and turnips with a different method of season extension, or being able to overwinter them here in a Zone 6A climate. Of course, rutabaga leaves are edible as well. They taste like kale, maybe a little stronger in certain circumstances, but they can taste quite good raw or cooked. So yeah, so the leaves as well as the rutabaga itself, which is underground. This season, I'm not sure if I'm going to add anything else into this cold frame at this point. For one thing, it's pretty late in the season. For another thing, I don't really have too many transplants outside in the elements at this point, so at least any of them that are left after all this freezing weather. Outside of the rutabagas and turnips, there's not too much. I was thinking of maybe potentially adding in some wild edible plants that are winter hardy, like maybe cleavers or chickweed, but that is an option to add some nutritious, healthy greens into the diet throughout the cold winter months, so I don't have to go digging through the snow to collect them. On a note of the cold frame structures themselves, and there's a third cold frame behind this cold frame. All I have is some soil in it and stuff like that. No actual plants in it yet. Just prepared for next season, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, these are sliding glass doors that were used to create the lid on this frame, and these doors can be very heavy. Generally on a cold frame, you kind of see how the closer side of the cold frame is higher than the far side of the cold frame to which the door is attached on hinges. So this way is actually a lot easier to open, since these glass doors are so heavy. So it's a mechanical advantage, or just really good leverage, or something like that. I'm not an engineer, but yeah, so it seems to be working out quite well with that. I just used a small piece of crate wood here to support the door at the top, and then it is actually just secured down at the base with 2 screws and 2 blocks of wood, so that it doesn't slip up and make the glass door come crashing down or anything like that. So I think that's pretty much a wrap for this cold frame update. I may do one I may do an update later on in the winter if it gets like a lot colder and we get deeper into the depth of winter. I may do an update if I feel if it seems to be pertinent. If not, then I'll probably just do an update in the spring with how I'm going to manage these cold frames throughout the warm season, and hopefully I'll be able to plan ahead and have some well thought out ideas of what I want to plant in these, and have them ready to go and in the ground at the right time, as opposed to late. So on that note, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.